I don't consider Hamas to be a terrorist organization. What happened on October the 7th was a jailbreak. It was the slaves revolting. These
It
people
was a
had
jailbreak that led to people being murdered. That's not a jailbreak. That's an act of murder. You can't use the
no.
term
That's
jailbreak. That's an
first of all,
astonishing act of euphemism. An astonishing act
no.
of euphemism.
I don't think that the Iranians have any uh, decision-making role in Yemen. Yemen is an ally of Iran, Ansarullah, or what the West likes to call the Houthis. They make their own decisions. The same is true with Iran's allies in Lebanon and in Iraq, as well as in Palestine and in Gaza in particular nowadays. The Iranians have always said that we openly support them, that during the years of war when Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, with the help of the UK government and the US government, among others, were assisting with the airstrikes on Yemen. Iran was supporting Yemen at that time. Iran was supporting Ansarullah. But I think, to say that they're clients of Iran or that Iran makes decisions for them, that's denying them agency.
And do you think it's overstated? Because the view in the West is very much that these are proxies for Iran. Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, they are linked economically to Iran, and they perform Iran's will. They are part of Iran's worldview, particularly its worldview directed towards the West.
I think if we were to look at it that way, we would have to say the European Union is an American proxy, Israel is an American proxy, because they have a strong relationship with the United States. Israel is totally dependent on the United States for weapons, and economically it is completely dependent on support from Europe and the United States. I don't think that helps, because it only only oversimplifies the problem. What's happening in Gaza is that a genocide is taking place. Ansarullah, or the Houthis as they like to call them, or the Yemeni government, they imposed a blockade on ships going to Israeli ports to put pressure on the Israelis to end the genocide. Now, the UK and the US say that this is unacceptable. They're blocking global trade. But when Israel was bombing Syrian ships, or ships going to Syria over the past few years, no one in the West, in Western capitals, were concerned about global shipping, or when Iranian ships were hijacked by the Americans, no one was concerned about global trade.
But the point is that the some of the ships that are being being targeted by the Houthis have no connections to Israel whatsoever. They're more broadly aimed. So this is not a question of just going after Israel as part of a conflict that is subsisting within that particular region. These are going against Western shipping, and if you go against Western shipping, you are going to expect a response, are you not, from the West? And I'm not entirely sure what the end game is here for the Houthis, because ultimately bombing shipping connected to America is not going to stop Israel attacking Gaza.
No, I think we have to be careful here. The ships that Ansarullah, that the Yemeni government targeted, first of all, the ships that were going to Israeli ports were warned not to go. Those that refused were targeted. So they were only targeting ships going to Israeli ports, not other ports. Ansarullah, the Yemeni government, stated specifically that all other ships can travel without difficulty.
But that's not true in practice. That's not true in practice, because
that is true. You can check the list of the ships that were targeted. They were carefully chosen. And of course, as I said, no one was killed. They damaged the ship slightly so that they'd leave. Again, this is because of what's going on in Gaza. But what the Americans did is that they widened the conflict by attacking Yemen, by killing sailors, by killing people on the mainland. The Americans have changed the nature of the conflict. Now, Yemen considers the United States to be a part of the conflict. And you have to keep in mind that by striking missiles, they're not doing any damage to the Yemeni military, because the military in Yemen was bombed by Saudi Arabia and Emirates for 7 years. all of their key installations are underground, just like in Gaza, just like in Lebanon. The United States should have learned when they assisted the Saudis in carrying out all these airstrikes and imposing a starvation siege on the country that this doesn't work. So they wasted a large number of missiles and only made people more angry. The solution to the problem is to end the genocide.
But
The Yemenis said that if the genocide in Gaza ends, then the situation changes.
well, Israel doesn't, of course, accept that it's a genocide, and many observers don't consider it a genocide. Also, although the point is well made by many people that innocent civilians have certainly died in Gaza. What is the Iranian? How does the Iranian government? How does the Iranian people justify support for Hamas, bearing in mind what they did on October the 7th, bearing in mind that they did go into a country and kill people in a terrorist act? How does that slot in to the narrative when it comes to Iran? Because Hamas did do that. October the 7th did happen. It was a vile terrorist act. How can that be supported by good Iranian people? Or can it not be?
Well, good Iranian people also supported the ANC in South Africa when its military wing was carrying out attacks against the South African.
So you don't think, so you would draw a parallel there. You don't think Hamas is a terrorist organization?
No, definitely not.
And do you not think that what happened in October the 7th was a terrorist act?
No, what is a terrorist act is ethnic cleansing. Do you know that 70% of the people in Gaza are people who were expelled from their homes in Palestine? 70% of them are from those lands around Gaza. That's where they lived.
I understand that point, but just before you get to that point.
Let me make my point. These people have been bombed for years. Starvation has been imposed on them for years. You know quite well that in 2008 and 2009, what the Israelis did in 2014, they would constantly bomb them.
But that doesn't stop. That does not stop the act of October the 7th being a terrorist act, in that it targeted innocent civilians, it killed innocent civilians, and it took innocent civilians hostage. That is the very definition of a terrorist act, and therefore Hamas is a terrorist organization committing terrorism. You cannot argue that away by whatabouting what Israel has done.
No, you cannot argue in that way without therefore saying that Israel is a much greater terrorist entity.
So you do accept that? So on that, so Hamas is a terrorist. So just to be clear, that Hamas is a terrorist entity.
You don't have people like me often on your program. So if you invite us, give us at least a few minutes, and then you can, for the next 2 weeks, you can debunk everything that I said.
I'm not interested in debunking. We've been having a conversation for 10 minutes. I'm just saying that you said Hamas wasn't viewed as a terrorist organization, and now that's shifted to it's a lesser terrorist organization than Israel.
No, I didn't say it's a lesser terrorist. I'm saying based on your logic, it is a lesser terrorist organization. I don't consider Hamas to be a terrorist organization. What happened on October the 7th was a jailbreak. It was the slaves revolting. These people.
It was a jailbreak that led to people being murdered. That's not a jailbreak. That's an act of murder. You can't use the term jailbreak. That's an astonishing act of euphemism. An astonishing act of euphemism.
No, you're not. You should be a bit more careful with your wording.
I am being careful more. I think you should be more careful.
No, you're not. You don't even allow me to speak.
Go on, speak.
Hamas took out military installations surrounding Gaza. They killed soldiers. Now it is coming out, and I hope your viewers look at the Israeli newspaper Ynet and others, that the Israeli regime actually itself killed a large number of Israelis through helicopter attacks and through tank attacks, because they did not want these people to be taken back into Gaza. This is not my saying. This is what you can read in Israeli media.
I don't believe you can argue away the murders of October the 7th. You make a completely separate argument, and people can hear that. They've heard what you've had to say over the last 10 minutes, and they'll make a judgment of that.
I think you should be very careful, because you may be justifying genocide by speaking like this. The people in Gaza.
I'm not justifying genocide. I'm referring to an incident that took place.
People in Gaza are the victims. They have been victims since they were born.
More than one thing can be true at the same time.
They were born under occupation.
An argument you've already made. I understand the argument, and you have made that argument already. Mohammed, good to speak. speak to you. That's a perspective from Tehran. People can listen to that. It's important that they hear it. Mohammad Marandi there, Professor of English Literature and Orientalism at the University of Tehran.